We really are in a golden age of dinosaur paleontology.
A lot can be learned from dinosaurs, not only as living animals, but rather as ecosystems of the past.
Dinosaurs rose, flourished, and fell without human influence.
When there's large changes to the environment, lots of animals go extinct, and I think it won't be any different this time.
For decades, dinosaurs have captivated the imaginations of the young and old.
Yeah, it's almost as big as my hand. Can I actually see?
Canada's province of Alberta has long been famous for its fossil discoveries.
Alberta's a great place because this is where pretty much all of the dinosaurs in Canada are found. We find dinosaurs in British Columbia and Saskatchewan and even Nova Scotia, but Alberta has the most dinosaurs anywhere in Canada.
Today, it's prairie landscape on top, grasslands, fairly arid. Then we have the badlands, which are just eroded, barren rock. Back in the Cretaceous, this was very tropical, lots of lush plants, similar to kind of modern-day Louisiana.
Back during the dinosaur time, in the Cretaceous period, we were actually on the coast here in Alberta, and that provided a really good environment for dinosaurs both to live and also to fossilize.
Alberta is known worldwide as one of the richest sources of dinosaur fossils anywhere. The faunas are relatively well known. People have been doing field work in Alberta for a long time. But nevertheless, the Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology, Dinosaur Provincial Park, they're internationally famous, and I think paleontology enthusiasts everywhere know about them and love them.
You're welcome to look around, but as I said before, this is bentonitic mud. It's really wet today. The public trail is relatively flat and shouldn't be too slippery, so you can walk along that. Probably relatively safe here, but don't go up on a hill or next to a sinkhole because it's dangerous. In Alberta, we've found, so far, about 100 species of dinosaurs, and that includes more than 40 species out of Dinosaur Provincial Park alone. And this is one of the richest ecosystems known for many of the most famous dinosaurs, animals like Corythosaurus, the helmeted lizard, Parasaurolophus, the one with the long tubular crest on the back of its skull, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus rex, and Kylosaurus, and they're dinosaurs from Alberta.
Philip J. Curry is a dinosaur expert, known worldwide for his discoveries and research. He even has a new museum named after him. Today, he continues his work in the field, but is also teaching paleontology at the University of Alberta.
I'm one of those kids who grew up always loving dinosaurs and always knew exactly what I wanted to be. And it was quite an unbelievable story in the sense that I managed to get a job doing exactly what I wanted to do in exactly the place I wanted to be, Alberta. I've been very lucky in that my wife, Eva, is also a paleontologist. Her specialty, though, is fossil plants.
It's like being a detective to try and find out what was in these ancient environments. Generally speaking, paleobotany and palynology is an underrated science because it doesn't appear to be as exciting as dinosaurs, but the fact is that it is as important because if it wasn't for the plants, there would have been no dinosaurs.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
So I found this bone down here in this washout from the rainstorm, and I first thought it was a vertebra, but when Phil he pulled it out, it turned out to be the occipital condyle from a centrosaur. And that's the bone that connects the skull with the vertebral column.
Studying dinosaurs and learning about them is like solving mysteries every day. We're learning things about how dinosaurs move. We're learning things about how dinosaurs functioned as living animals. Were they warm-blooded or cold-blooded? How intelligent they were. Even what their colors were in some cases. We're able to learn those things because so many people are doing research on dinosaurs right now, and they're doing it in novel ways that produce results that we wouldn't have thought possible even 20 years ago.
I work on the armored dinosaurs called ankylosaurs, and I think they're really cool. They're the spiky ones, they're herbivores, and some of them have these really cool tails that are modified into a weapon, a tail club.
Victoria Arbour was one of Curry's students at the University of Alberta.
I came across a picture book about ankylosaurs using their tails, and it occurred to me that nobody had really looked at how or why or whether or not they could even swing their tails as weapons. Tail weapons are really uncommon in animals alive today. So some of the things that I've been working on lately are why and how tail weapons evolve instead of, say, weapons on your skull, like antlers or horns. And what I got to do was actually CT scan fossils of tail clubs and get a really cool computer model as a result of those files. And so then you can put it into a special software program that basically converts it into a whole bunch of Lego bricks. And then within the computer, you can smash the tail into different things and see what happens, like see if it would break or if it distributes the stress really evenly. So that's a really fun way to do it because you can't really smash the real fossil into things. We don't really like to break fossils once we've got them.
Arbour is now doing her postdoctoral research on dinosaurs at the Royal Ontario Museum.
I think a lot of kids really like dinosaurs, and then some people don't really grow out of that phase, and I think I just happen to be one of those people. I don't even remember when I first started liking them. It's just always been part of my life.
When I started working on dinosaurs, I got a lot of letters from kids, and I still get letters from kids. So the interesting thing is that in the mid-1970s, 99% of those people who wrote me were in fact little boys who were interested in dinosaurs. I would say today it's almost 50-50. And the same goes for my graduate students. Half of my graduate students are females. So there's a definite shift in interests that takes in more people. This goes beyond the sexes. It goes on to a worldwide interest in dinosaurs that really didn't exist 30 years ago. At the moment, there's about 125 people worldwide who are paid to do research on dinosaurs. When you compare that to other professions, 125 for the entire world just isn't that much, but it's the best it's ever been.
With the increased popularity of dinosaurs in pop culture, the world is seeing a renaissance in paleontology.
I think the big resurgence in interest in paleontology is directly related to Jurassic Park. Since 1993, the public interest in paleontology and dinosaurs in particular has just skyrocketed.
For me, I was a little bit ahead of the curve. When the first movie came out, I was already at the university, but now we see the newcomers are coming, are the Jurassic Park generation, we call them. And we can see that a lot of them are highly excited and they produce a lot of cool discoveries. So I think the future of paleontology is in really good hands, and there's still going to be new people who get their first exposure to dinosaurs through Hollywood movies and then basically decide that they want to make a career out of it. So it's going to be really interesting. There's many bright minds out there that are coming up and just starting their career.
We are finding more dinosaurs now than we ever have historically in Earth's history. We're also finding more new species of dinosaurs now than we have ever before. So in Dinosaur Park, the bones are so abundant that they're literally just coming out of the hills as you walk by. So just on the hike down to the hadrosaur quarry, we can see here is one of the limb bones of a hadrosaur, the duck-billed dinosaur, and then we have a rib here and another rib here, suggesting that there might actually be part of a skeleton buried there.
Caleb Brown works at the Royal Tyrrell Museum. He is a paleontologist who is well known for his research on the new dinosaur nicknamed Hellboy. Today, he continues to uncover new fossils.
We're always going to be finding dinosaurs in Dinosaur Park and in Drumheller. We're also finding dinosaurs in new places in the province and across Canada. We're finding lots of dinosaurs in the mountains and in the foothills. There's research groups happening in southern Alberta that are looking at the resources there. We have stuff in northern Alberta. We have stuff in British Columbia. We have stuff in the Arctic, in Saskatchewan. It's called this age of discovery that's really opened up in the last 10, 20 years. So it's actually a great time to be working in dinosaurs in Canada. So the site that we're working today is a hadrosaur, or a duck-billed dinosaur. It was found 2 years ago by students on a field trip from Queen Mary University of London. And they found the skull eroding out of the hill. So the museum decided it was a good opportunity to collect that skull because that's where most of the information about the animal is. This bone right here is part of the cheekbone. This is part of the crest. And then we have the brain case and some of the lower jaws coming out on this side. You can see this bone right here is called the maxilla. So that's the upper jaw. And right along there, you can see all the teeth coming out. So the teeth are still in place, which is good. Once we started collecting that, we realized most of the skeleton was there. So we're collecting the skeleton as well. Currently, we're in the excavation stage of this dinosaur collection. What that means is that we're currently uncovering all the bones. So they're contained in a rock. We're removing that rock, getting down to the surface of the bone, but we don't uncover all of the bone. We only uncover enough to tell what type of bone it is and what type of dinosaur it comes from. And then once that's done, we actually do some mapping, because it's actually really important, especially in this quarry, how the bones are lying. So what orientation they are, how far they are from other bones, and in this particular case, at what angle they're laying. Most often we find bones laying flat, but in this particular case, most of the big bones are laying like that, which actually gives us some hints as to how this animal was deposited back in the Cretaceous. Once we've mapped out those particular bones, we put lots of glue on it to consolidate everything, and then we do what's called a plaster jacket. And this is basically a way that we figured out how to transport the specimen from the ground back to the museum. So we have to make sure that this undercuts it nicely there when it's setting up a bit more. It might be a bit tight. The future of paleontology is an ongoing interface between the fieldwork and new technologies. So it's actually mixing the very low tech of a pickaxe, which hasn't changed in 200 years, and some of the fancy technology, which is brand new each year. And I think the exciting discoveries are going to be made between those two areas.
In recent years, dinosaurs have been discovered in Alberta after natural disasters like floods and from excavations done by mining and oil and gas companies. The fossils are taken to the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology in Drumheller, where they are cleaned, studied, and put on display.
In the lab, I'm working on doing some air scribing. Air scribing is using a pneumatic tool, kind of like a little jackhammer, and we use it to remove the matrix from the surface of the bone. At the moment, we have two fantastic dinosaur specimens that are being worked on in the large preparation lab. One of those we've nicknamed the Suncor Nodosaur. That is an armored dinosaur that essentially is a mummified dinosaur. It is preserved with not just the bones in their original position, but also with the skin impressions of the dinosaur intact. So it essentially looks like a sleeping dinosaur. After the flooding events in southern Alberta in 2013, we had a lot of fossil material reported to us. One dinosaur in particular is the Fort Macleod Leptoceratops. A family reported it, having found it in the river. It is absolutely phenomenal. It is a three-dimensionally preserved, articulated small dinosaur. It's about the size of a dog. We have a portion of the skull, but the rest of the body is completely intact. It just looks like it lay down to sleep and never woke up.
I think most people see dinosaurs as just a curiosity or curious animals that were alive a long time ago and are really cool. But they probably don't realize that actually a lot can be learned from dinosaurs, not only as living animals, but rather as ecosystems of the past, and that we can learn lessons by studying those ancient ecosystems, such as how will ecosystems react to rapid climatic changes or environmental changes. And I think this is probably the next step of the field of paleontology.
Paleontologists like Francois Terrien depend on amateur fossil hunters to help them find dinosaurs. Each year, about 100 reports are made by dinosaur enthusiasts to the Royal Tyrrell Museum.
There's so many potential sites in the province that paleontologists like me can't go everywhere. We can't be everywhere in the province, even though we'd love to be, but it's impossible. So that's why we rely a lot on the general public to report their discoveries.
Fossil hunting is for everyone, not just little kids, although little kids certainly have the enthusiasm. But I'm 60 years old and I'm still thrilled about going and hunting for dinosaurs, so anybody can be a dinosaur hunter. Finding a fossil is a fantastic experience because as soon as you see it, in my case, I know exactly what it is, and just realizing that this animal has lived 60 to 70 million years ago, and I'm the first one that's put my eyes on this fossil is quite an exhilarating feeling. And when you find something that the museum thinks is important, that's even better.
Bill Bloss had a passion for dinosaurs since he was a very young man, and now that he's retired, he's got some free time and decided to go fossil hunting. So in the course of one of his adventures in 2015, he stumbled upon the remains of what looked like an articulated leg of a meat-eating dinosaur. Articulated means that all the bones are connected the way they were in life. That got us really excited, reported the find, and I took him along with a crew this summer. We went and retrieved the specimen, and turned out to be an articulated skeleton of a young tyrannosaur. So that ended up being a very significant discovery, and we hope that there's going to be more surprises that will come out of that find.
One of the world's top fossil hunters comes from Alberta's backyard. Wendy Sloboda grew up in the small southern town of Warner, Alberta. Her fossil finds have made international news.
My life has been a whirlwind of traveling and doing what I love. I dig in the dirt for a living, and I walk around and I hike and hike and hike. I love it. I've always had an interest in fossils and ancient man. When I was younger, we went out as a family and looked for arrowheads and stuff, and my life has kind of been put in a direction that way of dinosaurs.
Sloboda's life took a turn in 1987 when she was hiking in Devil's Coulee and found dinosaur eggshell fragments. This discovery led scientists to find the first dinosaur nesting site in Canada. Some eggs had dinosaur embryos inside. Today, a museum is set up in her hometown of Warner, Alberta, to mark the discovery.
This is one of the dinosaur egg nests that was collected in Devil's Coulee. They actually laid them in pairs.
Sloboda went on to work for the Royal Tyrrell Museum for 16 years as a paleontological technician. She is now a professional photographer and volunteers traveling the world looking for dinosaurs. Sloboda has made many of her discoveries while working with paleontologists David Evans and Michael Ryan from the Southern Alberta Dinosaur Project.
I am curator of dinosaurs at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. And my job is to do dinosaur research primarily on the dinosaurs of Western Canada because that's the strength of our collections. And now it's my job to not only curate that collection, but to go and find more dinosaurs. That's where Wendy comes in. She is one of the very best fossil hunters anywhere in the world. She has over 3,000 fossils to her name in the collections of the Royal Tyrrell Museum, and she has definitely found most of our good specimens. We actually joke that we're Wendy's cleanup crew out here, and that's because she runs around and finds great stuff, and then fortunately for us, we have to go and dig up these great specimens.
Wendy's got a very good eye because it's an intuitive, innate ability to recognize interesting shapes and colors when she's walking around that are different than the rocks that surround them.
I'll see something that stands out. Sixth sense, I'll look the right way. You know, it's impossible to describe how I do it. It happens.
it looks like you've got most of a juvenile, very young ceratopsian. Good. So this is a really great find.
And that would, like I said, explain all the young, like, little tiny juvenile-ish. And I did find some baby bones.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was more in here than one individual.
I think this is a, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a bone bed, David.
Exactly.
Are those ceratopsian eggs, Michael?
Maybe.
Exactly. I think that this is probably a bone bed of baby ceratopsians. So this is pretty wild. Way to go.
Working with paleontologists with the Southern Alberta Dinosaur Project, Sloboda discovered a new horned dinosaur in the Triceratops family.
Back in, it was 2010, I was out prospecting in October. The field crew had already left for the year. And I found a bone, a few bones sticking out of the hill. And I was always told to collect the skull bones of ceratopsians. So I collected it and brought it back and sent a picture to Michael and David, and they were like, oh, this is cool. And they came out in the spring, they took one look at it, and they says, where did this come from? Let's go right now.
She found this amazing site. We came and dug it up, and it happened to be a brand new and important species of dinosaur. Ooh, beautiful. We thought it was about time to name one after her in recognition of her amazing talent and contributions to Alberta paleontology. And so that's where the name Wendyceratops comes from.
They called it Wendyceratops pinhornensis. And it has a very unique frill, and it's got spikes that droop forward. And they said they could compare it to my dreads. To have a dinosaur named after you is one of the biggest honors that anybody in paleontology can have.
That specific specimen links a number of horned dinosaurs together. Wendyceratops appears to have a horned core over its nose that's sort of halfway between nothing and a very large, robust horn. So it told us a little bit about its evolution and its anatomy.
The Wendyceratops was also an important discovery because it was found in the Milk River Valley, which is an area in Alberta paleontologists haven't traditionally explored.
Our goal is to study some pretty remote areas of southern Alberta, like here along the Milk River Valley, fill in gaps in our knowledge of the dinosaur fossil record to better understand how dinosaurs are evolving and changing leading up to that end Cretaceous mass extinction. Dinosaurs actually are important for understanding what's going on in our modern world today. The work that we're doing here doesn't help us save individual species or individual animals, but it puts the scale of how we're affecting our environment and our world and our global ecosystem in an important historical perspective. And when you look at the rates of extinction that we're experiencing today, they are approaching the rates that we see in these big 5 mass extinction events, including the 166 million years ago that resulted in the collapse that wiped out the big dinosaurs. And so dinosaurs and their world are extremely important for understanding how the world will be affected by mass extinction, and in our case, human-caused mass extinction.
It isn't just in Alberta that new dinosaurs are being found. In the province of British Columbia, paleontologists are also unveiling exciting new discoveries. The husband and wife research team, Rich McRae and Lisa Buckley, are dinosaur footprint experts. The two paleontologists have worked together for over a decade, helping to uncover British Columbia's fossil history.
So what we have here is a nice small ornithopod trackway, and ornithopods are the plant-eating dinosaurs. And this is sort of what we are facing with this surface. Is we have a lot of these tracks are infilled, so we'll be popping this stuff out. It's actually comes off fairly easily. So that's a left print, and there's a right footprint. So it's got a fairly small pace. This site is one I've been calling a once-in-a-century track site. We're in the beginning stages, but we've already found about 9 or 10 different track types.
It was a local named Barry Miro who found and reported the footprints near the Williston Reservoir in northern British Columbia.
So we found the tracks while I was doing forestry work in the area. As we rode by on the quad, we noticed this exposed slab of rock with strange depressions in it, with moss growing in certain spots. We stopped the bike and jumped off, and sure enough, there were tracks.
So the animals, after a flooding event, would go walking across the surface as soon as they were able to. That's how they made the impressions. Now, how they got preserved was that the next pulse of sediment coming in from another flooding event filled them in.
These footprints are 115 million years old, so we're dealing with early Cretaceous dinosaurs. And the amount of information that we're getting from this site is huge already. One of the big surprises that we have are footprints from sauropods, from the huge brontosaurs and brachiosaurs. These were living in the Peace region and walking along.
We have a trackway here of a large meat-eating dinosaur theropod. The meat-eating dinosaurs have very sharp claws at the ends of their digits, and the plant eaters tend to have very blunt toes. They all weren't on the surface at the same time. We can tell that because of the differences in preservation. So it wasn't one big dinosaur stampede, but just a fairly dense amount of trackways being built up, just a number of dinosaurs walking across, and then some more walking across a little later, and then some after that. Now that's the type of thing that we're gonna be looking at and seeing if we can determine what the sequence was, like which ones came first, which ones came second, which directions they were going in. Were they heading somewhere specific, or is it all random? The plan this year is to excavate as much of the 6,000 square meter area as possible.
The very first thing that we do is we have to clean off the site. We have to get all of the extra crud off of the surface. Step two is, once we've uncovered the surface, is to give it the big brush off so that we have a nice clean slate to work with. Step three is we have to clean all of that infilling sediment out.
We go and outline the tracks with chalk. It helps us figure out what tracks belong to which trackways. And it's better than just eyeballing it. It gets you in connection with it, so you actually have to think about what exactly you're seeing.
But what's really interesting about these little ornithopod footprints is that we can tell this animal was walking on both its hands and its feet, because a lot of them come with a very small handprint. So they're probably doing something different when they're walking on both their hands and feet. Maybe they're walking slowly across the surface. Maybe they needed more balance because the sediment they were walking on was really soft. They needed to be low down to the ground because they were feeding on something. So these are all the types of behavioral questions that we get to ask when we see different types of footprints. For the past week, we've had visitors from many different parts of the world. These are all people who are interested in various aspects of dinosaur footprints, and especially early Cretaceous dinosaur footprints. So we form an international dinosaur footprint team.
This is authentic dinosaur action. I thought when we got here we'd see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 footprints. We're up to 800 footprints already. And in the last week, we've exposed, I think a few hundred ourselves.
Hey guys, I got 2 ornithopods here that turn in unison. Ooh. Well, when I see a track site like this, it really is very evocative because fossil footprints are the nearest thing we have to movies of dinosaurs. And I like to tease my friends who study bones and say, you're studying death, destruction, decay. We're studying the living, dynamic, athletic animal. Brings the ancient landscape back to life.
One of the ways that we incorporate advances in technology into our dinosaur track research and onto this site is with 3D photogrammetry. So we take digital pictures of the entire surface, run those through computer programs, and create a 3D digital replica of the entire track surface. It's like taking the track site home with you to the lab without having to move 1 gram of rock.
We can look at which animal walked across the surface first. We can estimate how fast the animals were going, possible interactions, and having that three-dimensional surface model will be valuable in sorting out those little details when we're back at the lab.
The Dinosaur Highway, Six Peaks Dinosaur Track Site, was uncovered for the first time to researchers and the public in the summer of 2016.
Yeah, there's about over 500 footprints on here so far.
Oh my goodness.
And then you can follow some trackways
right through.
Really continuously.
Oh, that's incredible.
With this current track site that we're working on, we're not discouraging the public from visiting. It's not something that we're advertising, but we're quite happy to show them around, and it's nice to see how enthusiastic they are about what's out here. If we get this site cleared, this could be the largest dinosaur track surface that's ever been, mapped and documented in the world. Really? Yeah. I've been saying we need to put a building over this to preserve it, and people are like, well, it's been here for 115 million years. I said, yes, it has, but it hasn't been exposed at the surface for 115 million years. I said, we're talking, maybe it's got a couple more decades at most.
What we'd love to have happen for this surface is for a lovely building to be put over it, a nice interpretive center, and to have the track's story told, to share this site with everyone who comes to the area.
When McCrae and Buckley are not in the field, they are at home in the small mining town of Tumbler Ridge.
I got involved with Tumbler Ridge as a result of 2 boys finding a trackway. That led to the discovery of a dinosaur excavation site, the first dinosaur bones in British Columbia.
The 2 paleontologists have worked hard to put their town on the map, building a museum, a research center, and North America's second UNESCO Global Geopark.
In Tumbler Ridge, we have the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery, and this is where we showcase all of the great fossils that we've collected in the Peace region.
The public component of the museum is the tip of the iceberg. So the collections is really massive. It is the only type of collection of its kind in the province of British Columbia.
For now, McCrae and Buckley are trying to raise money to help them continue to excavate British Columbia's first dinosaur bone bed. This hadrosaur bone bed was found in 2007 near Tumbler Ridge. They've excavated one mostly articulated and complete duck-billed dinosaur skeleton and are planning to uncover at least 3 more.
I want people to look at paleontology and fossils specifically and not just say, oh, it's just some dusty old bone on a shelf. I want them to be in awe of this millions of years old specimen that they're looking at and go, wow, that is part of our past. This is part of my story.
Back in Alberta lies Grand Cache, a northern mining town, which is struggling financially since the price of coal crashed. Paleontologist Rich McCrae is part of a plan that may help to save the community's economy. They are trying to figure out how to make dinosaur footprints that were found in a nearby coal mine a potential tourist attraction.
We have lots of meat eaters, we have some plant eaters, we have birds, we have crocs. So let's go take a look at the tracks, because that's what you came here for. This is one of the largest track sites in the world, and there's 25 different track sites within the property of this coal mine.
I've heard about these tracks for years. I've never been in here before, but I am just blown away at the scale of these tracks, and it's just amazing that they were preserved for 100 million years, and they're here for us to see now.
Can you guys see this? Okay, that's a left footprint of an ankylosaur. The handprint's right here. This is the right footprint, handprint. Left, right, left, right, all the way across. That is the most common track type in this mine. There's thousands and thousands of footprints, and there's all kinds of different preservations. And since there's 25 different sites in the mine, many of them represent different types of environments. So you get to see that certain animals had environmental preferences or tolerances, and there's certain environments that other animals tended to avoid. The track surfaces are vertical, and this is all as a result of mountain building. So in order to access the tracks, we have to use ropes or take pictures from far away. Because it's such a productive site, there's so much that it has to teach everybody in the world about dinosaur behavior. On this site, 60% of the tracks are bird tracks. There is an avian trackway, a bird trackway, that is right in line with that theropod trackway that's coming down, making short paces and strides, and very toed in, very pigeon-toed. As the trackway progresses, the pace and stride increase and the footprints straighten out, and then it ends. So what do you think might have happened?
Back to lunch.
Or it flew away. These sites are one of Canada's best kept secrets, and it would do them justice to have more people see and appreciate them.
To the younger generation, they're in love with dinosaurs and anything associated with dinosaurs. And for them to come here and see these tracks and be able to visualize in their mind these dinosaurs walking across this area, I think it's fantastic. Present time, the economy is not that great with mines shutting down and problems in the forest industry. It could be a lifesaver for the town of Grand Cache.
Another place in northern Alberta that is gaining attention with dinosaur enthusiasts is Grand Prairie. New fossils are being found in that area, and the Philip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum has opened up in the nearby town of Wembley.
The Philip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum in the Grand Prairie region opened in 2015. The idea of building a museum, though, goes back a long way. It was already in the 1970s that people started talking about the fact that Grand Prairie needed some more local museum that was going to display dinosaurs found in that region of the province. Basically, it represents not just the Grand Prairie region, but the whole of northwestern Alberta.
The museum is using innovative ways to get young people interested in science and to celebrate the paleontology in the region.
So this is a hadrosaur. They were plant eaters. I would come up to just over its knee. So these were huge dinosaurs.
Paleontologist Derek Larson works at the museum, researching the dinosaurs found specifically in northern Alberta. One of the most popular places to find them is the Pipestone Creek bone bed, where the famous dinosaur, the Pachyrhinosaurus, was found.
The Pipestone Creek bone bed is basically a dinosaur graveyard and one of the most significant fossil sites in the area, and that's why we decided to locate the museum so close to the bone bed.
The Grand Prairie area is a much more difficult terrain to excavate because of its forests, compared to the eroded badlands in southern Alberta. This unexplored terrain gives paleontologists an exciting challenge.
The bone bed is still an active site. We worked it just a couple of weeks ago. The estimates that we have for the site put it in the neighborhood of sort of 2 football fields in size. So there's going to be bone coming out of this site for many years to come.
The bone bed represented a mass death of a herd of Pachyrhinosaurus. So far, we've excavated the skulls of more than 25 specimens out of that one bone bed. and the bone bed stretches for more than 400 meters that we know of. So we've got work to do for probably another 100 years there in terms of finding new information about why the animals are all there.
For the next few years, paleontologist Corwin Sullivan will be dedicating much of his time to searching for dinosaurs in the Grand Prairie area.
We know that there are two very common dinosaurs, a ceratopsian called Pachyrhinosaurus and a hadrosaur called Edmontosaurus. So we expect to find more of those, and that would be interesting. But I think the more scientifically significant possibility is finding additional animals. And we have bits and pieces of them. We know that there are several theropods, for example, meat-eating dinosaurs in that area because we find teeth and other fragments that show they're there. We just need to get out there and find more sites and get to know this Cretaceous fauna better. Figure out what is similar to what we see in southern Alberta, what's different, and simply what was going on in the Grand Prairie area during the late Cretaceous.
Unlocking secrets of the past is helping Sullivan and other paleontologists predict our future.
I think if we'd lived in the Cretaceous, we'd just assume that dinosaurs were going to be the dominant land vertebrates forever, and there were going to be pterosaurs in the air and mosasaurs in the sea, and it would have been difficult to imagine these little furry mammals ever taking over, but of course it happened.
We're trying to understand the link between climate and environmental change and diversity in dinosaur ecosystems, and that's going to help us better understand the causes and consequences of mass extinctions generally. Leading up to the age of dinosaurs, we actually see a major decrease in the number of species of dinosaurs. We see major climate and sea level changes, and it's possible that those things are related, and when that asteroid hit, those dinosaur populations may have been much more susceptible to collapse. And we see a number of parallels to what we're doing today.
Climate is always changing on our planet, but the rate that it's happening right now is way beyond anything that we see in the fossil record. The last time that temperatures were getting this high was probably about 50 million years ago. We probably don't really want to see the effects of that. I don't really want to see an ice-free Antarctic or Arctic in my lifetime or in my grandchildren's lifetime.
That's a good lesson to learn for the world in which we live today, where the rate of climate change is so rapid that it mirrors what happened during the age of the dinosaurs. So it's telling us kind of a warning that if climate is continuously changing at such a rapid rate, that it puts all of the ecosystems under a lot of stress and could possibly lead to catastrophic extinctions.
Dinosaurs rose, flourished, and fell without human influence at all. So if we have a good idea of what happens to major ecosystems without the influence of humans, then we'll know what sort of impact humans have on the ecosystem. It's an important part of our planet's history, and everyone should care about it because it's ours.